America. Welcome to the Ben McCoy Show. Glad to have you on board. So it feels like it's been a while. It's been about a week, I guess, since we had our last show. Last week we talked about the tragic, terrible shooting in Uvalde, Texas. Since then, there's been some new developments that are just even more heart-wrenching. We've heard stories now of the police chief being completely inept in that situation, holding his men back, even while the shooting was taking place inside of the school, and the cops were, I assume, wanting to take action, and the police chief was holding them back. There was a stand down order or stand back or hold on order or something from the police chief, even while parents themselves were begging the cops to let them go in, if nothing else, to try and protect their children, which is just rips your heart out to hear something like that. And why in the world did the chief of police not allow his men to take action? I mean, that's what are the cops there for? I mean, I imagine in a town like Uvalde, Texas, a cop's days are usually spent, helping getting cats out of trees and stuff. But I mean, that's not the job. That's just because it's presumably a safe community until this happened. That certainly doesn't mean when something happens, you just continue getting the cats out of the trees. I mean, you got to take action. I mean, what in the world is going on where we have police that don't even take action when children are being murdered? It's just infuriating and just breaks your heart to hear about the parents who wanted to go in and do anything they could, even give their lives for their children. And man, it just boils my blood to hear things like this. But it's always the guns, the guns, the guns, the guns, the guns. If you listen to the left, it's all just the guns. None of these things matter. It's just the guns. Yet when, when it's another tool of violence, like when the guy a year ago or whatever it was ran down the parade of people, killing 12 or 15 people at a parade with his car, injuring dozens more. There was no calls for car control. We got to get control of these cars. We need legislation immediately. Take control of these cars. The focus was immediately on the man and his mental issues and his what happened and this, that, and the other thing. It was all about the man. But yet when it's a gun, it's all about the tool. It's all about the gun. Even though when something happens, the first thing people call is a man with a gun, or people with a gun to come take care of it. So, I don't know. It's always about the guns. They want us unarmed. And nobody has yet to explain how taking away my guns keeps this crazy kid in Texas from shooting up a school, because criminals have never had any problem getting guns. I mean, we had a alcohol prohibition in the 20s and 30s, and the criminals still were able to have plenty of booze around and underground establishments of drinking and whatnot. Drugs are illegal, hard drugs in most places, and yet there's no shortage of those. Murder's illegal. That still happens. Kidnapping's illegal. Everything that's illegal still happens. So taking away the guns from law-abiding citizens who aren't going to shoot up schools isn't going to keep the crazies and the criminals from obtaining guns and shooting up schools. It's just going to make it harder to respond to. Now, the issue of the police, and especially the police chief's ineptitude, must be addressed. That cannot go on. That's just, I don't even have the words of how just tragic that is and horrifically inept. It just makes me so mad. But anyway, and there's even been a couple more shootings since then. A shooting in Philadelphia yesterday. We have a people problem in this country. And yes, guns are readily available. We have more guns than we have people in this country, but guns aren't the issue. We've always had guns in this country. There's always been guns, tons of guns. I mean, this is the country of the Wild West. This is the country of the Revolutionary War. The country of the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor instead of a land invasion because of how armed the populace was, and they were afraid to actually attack by land and be taken out by citizen militia across the country. Even if you want to say the land of gangster rap, guns are just they are a part of our culture, and that's not gonna change. It's just not. So what do we do? These issues of gun violence to this extreme are relatively new. We've always had guns, and yet this is something new. So it can't be the guns, or else we'd have school shootings going back to the 1700s. Some idiot gets drunk and busts into school with his musket and, takes a shot at somebody, and 10 minutes later, after he reloads it again, takes another shot. No, none of these things ever happen. So what do we do about it? We address it from a people problem, and boy, do we have a people problem. We have a soul, spiritual rotting in this country is what our problem is, and it is rotting away in spades every day. The very foundation of everything we're supposed to stand for is just corroding away in big chunks. It used to be little pieces you could see here and there falling away. Now it's just huge chunks of the very fabric that holds us together as a people. It's just being ripped away and destroyed at every turn. And it's because of progressivism. Unbridled progressivism is also something relatively new. We've always had the left, we've always had liberals, and we've talked about this on this show so many times. I can't even get into it without repeating myself, but you know where I stand. There's a big difference between liberals and progressives. Liberals, tend to want the same things that we all want, a better country and a better life for their children. They just have a different way of getting there in a lot of ways. Progressives want power and control over your very thoughts and deed, everything you do and think. They want you submissive to them and their ways and their demands. And that's evident in everything that we're seeing. For example, Bill Maher, who is a stalwart figure of the left. He's been a liberal for many years. I haven't agreed with him on many things. I have agreed with him on some things. Definitely not a progressive. He's a liberal. And he has totally irked the progressives with his latest rant about how the LGBT, on and on thing has gotten out of control, and how suddenly 20% of children are, identifying as LGBT, and that's like all of the sudden. It was like 0.0001% for 200 years, and then in the last couple of years, it's 25% of children, whatever, identify as something on the LGBTQIA 2, 3, 4, 90210 scale. And he was pointing that out. What is creating this? This isn't just a natural, progression of a child, of gender and sexuality, whatever. This is something that's either being created, and he's pointing out why is it so prevalent in California but not so much in Ohio? Is it being suppressed in Ohio or created in California? And he's asking these questions, and boy, he has irked the LGBTQI 90210 establishment in a big way. Let's see, this guy David Kilmick is a spokesman in the Advocate LGBTQ network, which is I think the Advocate is a magazine, and he's going full bore after Maher for his latest comments. And it used to be that Bill Maher was held up as a bastion of the left. They were, he was just the banner example of what we should all aspire to, but not anymore. No, he has touched the sacred cow. He has gone after that which shall not be touched, the LGBT everything community. And that's just off limits now. And they are using that as a battering ram on everything to silence all opposition. Everything now. Everything is LGBTQ plus. it's used as both a battering ram. It's just used as a cudgel, as a whatever it needs to be used as in the moment. But you're not allowed to you're not allowed to criticize these people or criticize the movement or talk about anything happening to our children. You're supposed to shut up and just deal with it, because that's what it's all. That's progressivism, and it makes me sick. I've never had a problem with people living their lives as they see fit. Let me live my life as I see fit. And everybody's happy at the end of the day. I mean, that's the way we've always pretty much operated in this country for the most part, right? I mean, you do your thing, I'll do my thing. As long as we're not hurting each other or hurting someone else, then who cares, right? I mean, to me, that's the essence of liberalism, really. If you want to get down to it, to each his own. You do your thing and I'll do mine. I don't see what's wrong with that, but that's not good enough anymore. Now we have to advocate, not only support, we can't even just support, we can't even abide by the existence of these movements. We can't even just, silently stand by. You're not even allowed to do that according to these people anymore. You have to openly assign yourself to their cause and be an advocate for what they stand for and what they're doing. Vocally support them, or else you're a hater and you're a bigot and all these things they like to throw out. Bill Maher's in the crosshairs now. He doesn't care. He's a tough guy. He's been there before. He knows how to play the game. And I'm no defender of Bill Maher, but I do like that he speaks his mind, even though he's wrong on a lot of things. He's also right on a lot of things. And he doesn't run it through the filter first to make sure it's okay with this group or that group. He just says it. And he'll piss off conservatives a lot, with some of these things over here. But then he'll piss off the far left a lot too. And he doesn't care. And I like that. I like anybody that doesn't care. It just speaks their mind. It does not care. As long as it's intelligent conversation. And yes, he's capable of that. So anyway, they are infuriated, and they're going after his backers and the financial means of Bill Maher, which is really HBO. He's got a show on HBO, so they're demanding HBO fire him because he spoke out against the LGBTQ, and he didn't really even speak out against them. He was just asking questions. He was saying, "How come this? It's so prevalent now, and a few years ago it wasn't. I mean, what's happening?" I don't see anywhere where he was like criticizing anyone, really. He certainly wasn't condemning anyone. He was calling it out, and I guess you're not allowed to do that. These things are supposed to be allowed to operate without question, without any critical thought. You just assign yourself to it, and you advocate for it and cheer for it, and when your 4-year-old's in drag and all, you're supposed to be happy about it and celebrate that he's expressing his true self and all this crap. And you're a hater and a bigot if you teach your children traditional values. That's what it's all about. When Obama lit up the White House and the rainbow colors, most of us probably remember that. I mean, that was a turning point. That was a real signal that this thing is coming, and it's going to be the new cudgel in America, and it really has. And so that was almost a declaration of victory over the state as far as that agenda. And we are also seeing a victory over the church with that same agenda. This is really biblical times we're living in, because the Methodist Church has proudly ordained a person, the first drag queen pastor. Have you heard this one? A gender-bending minister for the nation's third largest denomination. This is a drag queen in a bright red wig and a bunch of makeup and everything else you don't want to see, and has been officially ordained as a Methodist pastor. I mean, Methodist. I mean, this is like one of the traditional top 3 Baptist, Presbyterian, Methodist denominations in this country. I grew up in kind of a modern church when I was young, and I was in Boy Scouts, and our Boy Scout troop met at a Methodist church, and I was always struck by how traditional and how beautiful the sanctuary was, and the pews and the exposed rafters and the stained glass, and this was just a very solemn and traditional place. This Methodist church that our Boy Scout troop met at every week, which was our home base. And so I've always kind of, I've never been a Methodist, but I've always that was my experience with the Methodist faith denomination. And that's kind of always been in the back of my mind. That's what Methodist is. And now, this is crazy. This is just mind-boggling to me. In the Methodist, the United Methodist Church has put out all of this propaganda in support of this guy named Isaac Simmons, who regularly preaches as a drag queen under the name, get this, Miss Pentecost. This isn't a joke. Miss Pentecost. Clearly making fun of the book of Acts, the original Pentecost. This is Miss Pentecost. This is unbelievable. So anyway, there's been a split coming in the Methodist Church over some time now, the conservative side versus the liberal side. And what's really odd is they kind of have, agreed to disagree, and they're going to split. The liberal side, with Miss Pentecost and all this other crap, gets to keep the name United Methodist Church. They still are going to be the United Methodist Church. And the traditional Wesleyan Methodist, the conservative side of things, has to come up with a new name, which they have, the Global Methodist Church. Now, that seems backwards to me. It's the globalist movement is a movement of the left. It seems like that since they're taking a diversion from the conservative traditional Methodist faith, they should be the leftist, the progressives should be the Global Methodist Church. And the way things always been, the traditional Methodist Church, which is the way it's always been, should keep the name United Methodist Church. I don't know. I don't have a dog in the fight other than as a Christian, it just completely drives me crazy to see this kind of thing happening in the church. The state is crazy enough, and now the church, and it just seems like as conservatives, we just sit idly by too much when these things happen and go, well, those crazy leftists, man, they've done it again. And the left always takes action. It's always action. Usually it's the wrong action. It's, I don't know what I'm trying to say. The left is so much better at organizing and letting their voice be heard. And that's all we ever hear about is organizing and marching and protesting and all these things from the left. And they're good at it. And it helps that they have the support of the pillars of culture, media, entertainment, government, academia. And they do. They always have the support of those pillars. But they are very good at organizing at the grassroots level on up. And we're not. And yes, we're busy doing all the work in this country and raising all the families and doing all the things that need to be done. And but that's really no excuse at this point, because we're on the verge of losing everything. When the Methodist Church openly embraces a drag queen pastor and ordains them and expects everybody to get on board, that's kind of taking the temperature of where we're at. That's the Overton window right now of where we are. It's just beyond the pale. There's always been liberal churches that have leaned to the, LGBT, Episcopalian church has always been a little bit like that, or a lot like that, really. But now even the Church of Christ, I've seen that has been very much embracing of the LGBT thing. And now the Methodist Church, it's unbelievable to me. It's under this banner of, it's always this banner of love. God loves us all. We have to love everybody. If you don't love this, then you're a hater. You're a hater. You're hating. and you're part of the scary people. Somebody made a comment that was very eye-opening to me, how they always are able to paint the detractors as the scary people. These haters and bigots, they're the scary ones. As long as we're the scary ones that call this stuff out, then it always makes their side the victim. Even though they have all of culture behind them in their corner supporting them, they're the victims. They're the little cowering victims that are being oppressed and bullied by the scary haters, which are people like us that we're not wishing anyone harm or anything. We're just trying to call out the craziness of all of this, but we're the haters. And they talk about how Jesus loved everybody. And I mean, I guess it was an act of hate when Jesus turned over the tables in the temple and ran out the money changers with a whip. And yelled at them until, you're turning my Father's house into a den of thieves, and called them vipers and ran them all out. I guess that was an act of hate. He was being a hater. Christ himself, a hater, a bigot. I'm sure the money changers in the temple had supporters back then that encouraged them to stand up to the hate and the bigotry that they're experiencing in the church. Be brave against all the scary people trying to run you out of the temple. You have the right to be there. God loves you. They can't tell you can't be there. You're God's children. That's your temple too. But then Jesus himself, he must have been one of the haters that ran them off with a whip, turned over their tables, trashed everything they were doing. I'm just saying, it's not hate to call these things out. I mean, the Bible is very specific about what the fear of God is and what what God expects of us and of his church. And to make it a mockery is not in his wheelhouse. That's not what he's about. And they're going to find out. I don't know where this is going, but it's not going to be good. And again, I don't see anybody wishing this man ill. I don't see anybody wanting to hurt him or anything. They're just saying this is not appropriate. It's not appropriate for a man dressed in women's clothes and making a mockery of women. Have you noticed that there's a war against women? They always talk about the war against women perpetuated by the right, which never even existed. That was just code for pro-abortion, for the pro-abortion agenda. But there is a serious war against women being perpetrated from the left. Look at the transgender swimmer taking over everything in the women's swimming and other sports. I'm seeing a very, very serious war against traditional women. And this drag queen making a mockery of what a woman looks like with his ridiculous clown makeup, these big painted on eyebrows and this red crap all over his face and this eyeliner, everything's exaggerated, big red wig, all this gaudy jewelry hanging. I mean, it's the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life. And this is what his idea of what a woman is. And you're seeing this kind of thing, drag queen story hour with the children. Oh, the other thing is the United Methodist Church put out a video of this guy preaching. Yes, he's preaching out there in the world, preaching. Surrounded by children, ages, everywhere from about 2 to 10 or so. And they're holding what looks like an LGBT Bible. I'm not making this up. You can go on YouTube and find it. It looks like I can't tell, but it looks like the Bible that they're holding, because he's holding it too, like he's preaching from it. He's got it, like a preacher holds out the Bible as he's talking. And it's got the rainbow, the rainbow thing all over it. The rainbow colors, and it looks like a Bible with the rainbow colors, and all the children are holding one too, standing there. And this is your United Methodist Church, people. This is a lot of you out there probably Methodist, probably grew up. Your grandpappy was a Methodist, and you've been one ever since, and all that. And this is what's becoming your church. This is just a bellwether of what's happening in our culture, and we can't turn a blind eye to it anymore. And I mean, we have to pray like we've never prayed before. We have to walk, we have to hold our heads up and walk in strength, and not be beaten down by these people. We are supposed to live in the world, but not be of the world as Christians. I know this isn't per se a Christian podcast, and maybe all of you out there aren't Christians listening, and I welcome, anybody who wants to listen to my show. And I'm not going to preach to you, but I am a Christian. I believe in Christian values, and I'm, going to speak my mind on this point. As those of us who are Christians need to behave like it, and not apologize for being who we are, and at the same time be salt and light to the world. We're not out there to hurt anyone or condemn anyone for who they are, but yet we're supposed to condemn sin. And it's all around us. I know it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming me just seeing these things. It's unbelievable how fast the slide has been. It's just accelerated like you cannot believe. And it seems like it's all around the time that Barack Obama took office. I've seen other people say this thing, and it's true to me. I feel it. A real turn took place at the end of the first decade of this century, the 2009, 2010 to 2012 era, the Obama years. We really took a serious turn, and culturally, spiritually, in every way in this country. And we are seeing the culmination of it now just really pick up steam. And I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what it looks like 10 years from now, even if it just continues getting worse, or if something happens to kind of put things back in their place. Donald Trump being elected was an attempt at that. I think people were looking at the craziness and saying, look, we'd rather have this game show host who has a few good ideas and a brash, crazy personality than what we've been having, because things are just getting out of control. I think that's what that was all about. And he turned out to be a pretty doggone good president. Some of his ways that people don't really find suitable notwithstanding. His policies and his actions were overwhelmingly very good. And boy, are we missing those right now when we pay $150 a gallon of gas, and a gallon of milk you had to take out a second mortgage for, and it's just ridiculous right now. And that's thanks to, who we got running things right now. So yeah, Biden's over there begging the Saudis for oil when we're standing on more oil than anywhere else in the country. And in the world, excuse me. We got it right under our feet, and he's just can't figure out where to get more oil from to lower these gas prices. Oh my God. And I think they want the high gas price. I think this is all the green agenda. This is all planned out. This is all, Biden's an idiot. We know that, but he's not surrounded by idiots. These people, they know what they're doing. This is such a concerted plan to get us all on the green economy, but it's not working. That's the thing. It's not that they can't figure out how to bring gas prices down and how to get the economy working again. They could do that tomorrow just by going back to the principles that we know work and the policies that we know work that we had under the Trump administration. No, they don't want that, though. They want us to all love and adopt and embrace the green agenda along with the LGBT. It's all, whatever their agenda is, we have to embrace it. We have to become advocates for it and warriors for the cause. And that's what they want with the green thing. And they're going to keep beating the hell out of us with this, with the economy until we embrace it. The green agenda. Man, I don't know what we do. I don't know where we go from here. Everything's out of control. But I know we can't just lay down and take it. I know that much. I know it in my spirit. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to lay down and take it. I'm not going to let them steamroll over me and tell me what to think, what I can say, what I can't say, if I'm able to own a gun or not. They don't have that right. We have a constitution. We have rights in this country that they can't touch without, constitutional methods being undertaken to change it. And that's not going to happen. They don't want that to happen. They don't believe in the Constitution. They don't believe in our founding principles. They believe in whichever way the wind blows today. That's what they believe in. Whatever gets them more power today, that's what they believe in. And if the other way gets them more power tomorrow, then it'll be that. These progressives people, they are dangerous. I tell people all the time. And we're still wired into the left of yesteryear. The liberals are, no, we're not dealing with liberals anymore. These progressives are dangerous. They have a dangerous agenda, a dangerous ideology, and they want nothing but destruction for anything and anybody that has even the smallest detraction to say about their agenda. The smallest bit of resistance. I mean, they want the heaviest hand of government to come down to silence those people. I mean, you've heard about the Ministry of Truth they're trying to put together now. I mean, what is that? Now all this, one of the buzzwords now is disinformation. Everything's disinformation. Disinformation is tearing us apart. Disinformation. Oh my God, the disinformation. What is that? That wasn't even a word a couple years ago. Now it's disinformation is the cause for all of our problems. And what disinformation is conservative ideology and conservative ideas. That's what disinformation is. And now they want boards and people and people endowed with the power to shut down disinformation everywhere it is. This is scary, man. I mean, one man's disinformation is another man's First Amendment opinion. Who gets to decide what's disinformation? Why can't I speak disinformation if I want to? Why? That's my right. If I want to say that, I don't know, something that could be objectively considered disinformation, water's not wet. Yeah, that's disinformation. But who cares? That's my opinion. I don't think it's wet. I think it's dry. I think water's dry. When you touch it, it's dry. It's not wet. Oh no, I'm destroying the very fabric of society with my disinformation. But see, nobody cares about that because there's not political capital and there's not power to be gained or lost. It's not part of the chess match. They don't want to play the chess. They want to turn the board over and throw all the pieces on the floor and just completely have you eviscerated because you're not embracing everything they stand for. These people want total power and control and no dissent. And if you dissent on anything they say, you're a hater, a bigot, and all these things, all the buzzwords they use to beat you over the head with and make you a bad person. And one of the bullies of society needs to be shut down. And nobody wants to be called a bully. If we were a racist society, then being called a racist wouldn't be such a big deal as it is now. It's like the biggest, worst scarlet letter there is. Nobody wants to be branded a racist. Well, that doesn't make any sense if we're a racist society like they keep telling us. If we're a racist country full of racists, then nobody would care if they were called a racist. I mean, that makes no sense. Which way is it? Nobody wants to be called a racist. Nobody wants to even be seen as a racist or do anything that could be considered mildly racist in any form by anybody at all. Everybody's so careful. And it's a good thing that we have that consciousness in this country to be aware of those issues and where we've come from, and that we don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past, which, by the way, were perpetrated all by Democrats. But nobody wants to be a racist, and that's a good thing, but we're certainly not a racist country. One of the things I heard on the radio, I can't remember the show the other day, it wasn't really a conservative show, but they were talking about the shooting in Buffalo, where some crazy racist moron killed a bunch of black folks in a black neighborhood, predominantly black neighborhood at a grocery store, and how that's ripping the country apart about, the racist and racism in America. That's not racism in America. That's racism in a grocery store where a maniac with a gun, with a broken soul and a broken evil black spirit stepped in and murdered people. And that's a people problem. And we've still got it. We haven't fixed it. There's people out there right now planning the next destruction, planning the next murder spree, because there is evil in this country. There are people with evil in their hearts, and they want to do evil to their fellow man. And going after guns and the racist and the anti-LGBT, that's not going to fix it. It's going to make it worse, because we're not addressing the spiritual issue. And how we do that, I've never been one to, advocate for any kind of theocracy or anything like that. I want our nation to function as founded, where, we are free to conduct ourselves as we please, be it lawfully, to think and worship and act and behave as we please without being punished for it. And it's become too easy and too in vogue to punish people of faith and people of conscience and people who have traditional morals. It's become too cool to do so. It's too easy. And their rights are being completely just, eviscerated right before our eyes. So, where do we go from here? I'm ready to hear some ideas. I wish we could take live calls in this show. Maybe one day we're going to do the live show thing. I'd love to hear from you. You can always email me, benmccoyshow@gmail.com. Let me know your thoughts. I'd really like to hear some feedback out there. But to circle back around to something I mentioned a few moments ago, when Obama was in office and painted the whole front of the White House in the rainbow colors, and that was sort of an anointing of sorts, a perverted anointing of that progressive agenda, kind of planting its flag, literally, on our culture, on the symbol of American freedom, and the American way of life, the White House, symbol of our state and our government. It was almost like an anointing of sorts, and now you're seeing the same thing happening in the church as well, and it's all part of a very carefully orchestrated agenda. And if you'll recall, Obama promised to fundamentally change America, and I think he accomplished that. I don't think anybody would argue that he definitely accomplished that. And as my wife Adrienne said, he never promised to change it for good. But he did promise to fundamentally change America. And I think he did a lot during his 8 years in office to do that, that we're still seeing today. That really opened the door for the progressives. And it had nothing to do with the fact that he was the first black president and everything like that. I think that just gave him more license than most presidents would get. Because it was such a monumental moment, that our first black president and all that, everybody, nobody wanted to take away anything from that historical landmark, which was in and of itself a good accomplishment for our country. But, oh man, I mean, who we got to fill that role was, I think, a big mistake. I mean, we could have had the first black president 10 years earlier with Alan Keyes and I mean, there's been black conservatives that have run for office. I mean, we could have had the first black Democrat with Jesse Jackson. That would have been at least entertaining in the late 80s when he ran. But I digress. What I'm getting at here is that, the progressives, they hate religion. We know that. They hate organized religion. They always tell us that, but they have their own religion. Everything they approach is with a religious fervor. They've created a religion out of the LGBTQ plus ideology, the green movement. They have a set, these things have dogma. They have sins. They have a cast of saints and sinners and heretics, which you and I are. We're the heretics. They have, their 10 commandments, and they have their God. They have their deity, which is, ultimately themselves. But it is their agenda and the dogma that they hold on to with such religious fervor that there cannot be any detraction from. Look at the Sharia countries with the Islamic law. This is exactly the same template that today's left wants to fashion our society after, with their set of dogma, with their ideals, with the way that the LGBTQ agenda is embraced and the green agenda is embraced, where dissent is not tolerated or allowed and can be punished. And that is what they are trying to do. Look around you. Look how you are punished for speaking the truth or speaking out against them. Also with the anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment, the gun control crowd, that's a religion in and of itself they're creating. And see, if they can create a religion out of it, then they can pursue religious ideals with it and punish those who are against the church, and have this perverted alliance of church and state with their own church, not the traditional church of God, but the church of man that practices this religion of progressive ideology. And that's what they want. I mean, that's what their goals are. And that's where we're headed. I mean, if you recall Obama, when he was in the White House, when he spoke, I believe it was at Notre Dame University, he had the crosses covered before he would go on stage and speak. And they actually did that. I mean, a Catholic university actually capitulated. And it was all because the first black president don't want to be racist. Remember, everything was racist. If you disagreed with Obama's policies or ideas, you're a racist. It's just that simple. So to not cover up the crosses at a Catholic university because the first black president asked you to, that would be certainly a racist thing to do, according to the prevailing wisdom of the time. And Notre Dame certainly had zero backbone to capitulate in that. But boy, was that scary. I mean, it was just a symbol of, look, we are the times are a changing. He was changing the times in our culture. The Bible talks about that, the changing of the times and ways, and that's, I think that really is where the shift occurred, is when Obama took over. And it's not that you can tie a direct line to Obama with everything today. I'm just saying that's where it was at that time in our history. And when he took power, that everything started to really, really shift into high gear towards the left and towards what we have today that's just out of control. And it was because of things like that. You would never, all of our history, pick any president, the worst president you can think of the past, speaking at Notre Dame, asking the crosses to be covered up. That would never, ever happen. And if it did, it would be the biggest scandal ever. But yeah, Obama did it, and no big deal. It's just what he wants, whatever. That was, he was sending a real signal. Out with the old, in with the new. Embrace the new church of, whatever you want to call it, progressive ideology. And welcome the Pope, the first Pope, Barack Obama. And here we have, it's in full swing today. And you and I, we're on the chopping block. I mean, we are in the crosshairs. They are after us. They do not want us speaking truth to power. They do not want us practicing our beliefs in any kind of way that could be seen by others. Because that's offensive. It's offensive for a Christian to be a Christian. But it's not offensive for a drag queen to run a church. And have children next to him as he totally perverts the word of God into something that it's not. One of this guy's quotes, this, I know I'm all over the place, but this drag queen Methodist preacher was, God is nothing. I mean, what? That's what the Methodist, United Methodist Church is proud of, is their new pastor, a drag queen that says God is nothing. But see, that's what they believe. They believe God is nothing. They are replacing God with the God of their own creation, their own idol, their own dogma, their own belief system. And that's what they want to do. They can't do that, but they're going to try. They can't get rid of God, but they're going to try. And we see those efforts every day. And they can certainly go after his believers like you and me. And that's what they're trying to do. And the first step they're going to do is try to take away our voice. That's what you're hearing with all this disinformation crap. They don't want us speaking our minds. I forgot to mention, but I've actually started adding this show you're listening to onto YouTube. I have a YouTube channel I'd love for you to check out, Ben McCoy Show YouTube channel. And I've put each episode on that channel for the denizens of YouTube to consume if they so desire. And one of my shows was removed completely, the whole show gone. And I was like, what in the world is that? Well, it turns out there was a 8, 10, 15 second screed on there that I said where I was talking about COVID. And I don't even want to repeat what I said now. See, I mean, I've been beaten into submission. I don't want this episode removed. I could still say it. So, but if you go back, I believe it's my second episode. And I was talking about the COVID vaccine, and well, it didn't comport with the official government CDC Fauci approved speech on the COVID vaccine, and so YouTube saw to it to absolutely obliterate that entire episode off of YouTube. So it's gone. It's on my other podcast platforms. Thankfully, they haven't completely lost their minds as Google and YouTube have. So you can still listen to it. But anyway, that's just that's a small, tiny, little, insignificant, in the grand scheme of things, component of how they are beating us into submission. Also, my wife Adrienne has a YouTube channel. Adrienne Harvey McCoy is the name of her channel, and she put a video of when Biden said we put together, whatever he said, the best voter fraud network ever, or when he made that statement and was on camera. Well, she posted that video to her channel, unedited, untouched, just Biden speaking, and they removed it and sent her a warning. I mean, she's the president. She put a video of the president speaking just because he said something that they wished he hadn't said. They removed her video and gave her a warning. Don't let it happen again. I mean, what country are we living in? It's in these small little chunks, and that we look the other way and just put up with. And again, like I said earlier, those silly progressives are at it again. We don't organize and protest and pound our fists on the table the way the left does. And I think it's time we start doing some things like that. We can't. We're too nice, and I don't think we should ever go to violence or anything like that. I'm not saying anything like that. Somebody's going to misquote my words and say I'm calling for some kind of revolution or anything. I just don't think we should be a doormat for every leftist that comes along and demands that we speak the way they want us to and believe in the things they approve and support and confirm all the things that they support and confirm. We should say, no, this is who we are, and we have the right to be this way. And we should do it peacefully and with love if we're going to obey the words of Christ himself. But we shouldn't just lay down and take it. That's all I'm saying. And I think we're too reticent to lay down and take it. And I, for one, I'm sick of it. I'm tired of it. I'm not laying down anymore. I'm not taking it anymore. I'm going to speak my mind. And if they don't like it, tough. I don't like it when they speak their mind, but I would never take away their voice. I would never, ever support my enemy not being able to speak his mind, because that's what this country is all about. And I believe in the values, the founding principles of this country. I believe in the Constitution. I believe in the First Amendment. And I don't believe I have to agree with everything somebody says when they exercise their First Amendment. It doesn't say, I don't see those words in there that, the right to free speech, as long as everybody agrees with it, shall not be abridged. I don't see those words. I just see the right to free speech. And if it wasn't offending somebody, it wouldn't have to be codified as the very First Amendment to our Bill of Rights. It wouldn't have to be in there. It would just, if it didn't have the potential of being offensive to somebody, it has to be there to protect the offensive speech. Because if it all has to be approved first, then there's no reason to even have You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's no reason to have a right to free speech, because you wouldn't have any free speech anymore if it had to be approved by a panel of a truth, the officers of truth, the ministry of truth. So we just have to refuse to play the game on their terms. We will speak and say the things we have the right to say and believe the things we have the right to believe. And they can just not like it. And we don't need to let that, control everything that we do anymore, and not be bullied into submission. I'm over it. I don't care if you call me a racist or whatever. People that know me know I'm not a racist. I know I'm not a racist. My God knows I'm not a racist. And it just doesn't have the power anymore. And we can't give them that power over us that we've given by our silence. Silence is consent. They like to say that one. Well, it works both ways. But no more. We need to band together. We need to, as people of faith, people of conscience, people that believe in traditional values, we need to not let them set the rules of the game anymore, and be who we are, and not apologize for it. And I encourage everybody out there to do exactly that and refuse to be subjugated. Well, folks, that's all the time we have this week. Thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate you being out there and listening every week. Please tell all of your friends and family, everybody you know, about the show. I feel like we are growing slowly but surely, and I just really appreciate you being out there. Please check us out on Twitter, at Ben McCoy Show. Send me an email, benmccoyshow@gmail.com. Let me know what you think about the show, what you want me to talk about, any ideas for guests in the future, or whatever's on your mind. Love to hear from you. And we'll see you next time. Thanks again. God bless.